Hello, thanks for tuning back into my channel, The Truth of It All. I think so far you realize and agree that I have told you nothing but the truth. What as above, so below truly means, and what 10 and 60 math. What is this place and how do we measure it? That's simply the very basis of everything. But they have far-ranging implications that many of our current cosmologists, etc., ignore. And if they took these as three rules of a logic problem, these are the three rules of the logic problem, so you can't ignore them. And if we did, it answers lots of questions and it would allow us to focus. It would allow us to elevate our consciousness if we came back in touch with what the ancients knew. And the ancients knew the first law, the ancients knew the second law. And that's why they were able to do all this fantastic engineering and things of that nature. But you'll see, as we go through it in our history, most of the megaliths we're finding, particularly the ones that were buried, they were buried after the cataclysms because they thought they were an affront to God. So they were intentionally buried, just like Göbekli Tepe. Now you know why it was covered up. Where it was covered up. It was covered up because after the cataclysm, people said, wow, God was mad, but look at these prideful megaliths that we built. So you'll see ones that are blown up. You'll find ones that have been scorched with 10,000 degree blasts. You'll find tails of comets, snakes, and dragons coming down from the sky. The Chinese have a tail of a dragon. All of this fits into our history, as you will see. And all of this happened. And so things got twisted after the cataclysms. But the information I'm sharing with you is what known by the ancients who built those megaliths. That's why I'm teaching you this. And that's what we get into episode 4, the third law of On. And what's the third law of On? The zodiac, a circle with characters in it. And there's 13, by the way. One stands on top of the other, and you'll see that's very significant down the road. One stands on top of the other. They occupy the same 1/12 of the circle. Okay? But you can break the circle down into 12 sections. But it's 13. Remember, the number 13 in sacred math is important. And 12 is important. Why? Because 1 and 2 is 3, and 3 is creation. And what is 3 threes? God. So that's why all in sacred math it adds up to 9. Okay? We'll get into this later. But 9 is God and 3 is creation. There's only 3 ways to recreate creation. And we'll get into that later. You'll be amazed. We send our children out to play because of it. With that said, we're going to discuss how our history is somehow this zodiac. Now, most people, the archaeologists first discovered, when they're going through the Sumerian ruins and the Babylonian ruins, and they say, oh, look, they saw the zodiac. Oh, and they thought immediately, oh, they believed in that pseudoscience of astrology. Oh, they believed the stars somehow impacted the way things work. And that's a falsification, and they just discarded it. And that's why we don't know it as the third law. It's not included. It's just discarded as another ancient myth. But the zodiac ages, like the age of Aquarius, we're about to enter into. And in fact, I'll prove to you we've already entered into it. December 21st, 2012 wasn't the end of the world. It was the end of the age of Pisces. Silly. Now is it all making sense? All right, is it starting to make sense? That's all I want to know. With that said, the idea of our history is told in this zodiac. And therefore the symbols that they use, the symbols that the zodiac comprises, must mean something. They must mean something. How are they going to describe our history? And then the thought occurs to me. Wait a minute. I read more than one place, Babylonian clay tablet and Sumerian clay tablet, clay cylinder, that says that the first law, as above, so below, applies to the zodiac. Remember that. Remember that. Remember that. As above, so below applies to the zodiac. So if the zodiac describes the small or the single of something, it also describes the spiral of the whole, all of them. And what is the zodiac? The zodiac symbols are the stages of life from birth to death. Starting with Capricorn. And we'll get into those specifics later when we get into the implications and a little more. I'll break this down into a part 2 and a part 3 because it gets really complicated. But what we find is, starting with Capricorn, the age of the newborn, the various zodiac symbols are pictorial representations of the stages of life. And if you are lucky enough to live to old age, whether you have children, get married or not, But you don't have to. You will go through all 13 stages. Remember, 1 and 1. Matter of fact, you know that we still, it was villainized 13 right back in the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, and so 1 and 3. To this day, sticking your fingers up, you'll shooting my 6 gun or mocking somebody. It was looked down upon to do this, but this is 13, and this is why 2 fingers. And sacred back. So going back to our history now, we have to go back, and how do we know that Capricorn is the first stage? Well, think about it. What's our first stage of life? Let's look at it from what we do know, and then we can go to the bigger picture. Isn't that the easiest? That's why we say as above, so below means, right? As above, so below means we do the small and the large, and they follow the same pattern. So our first stage of life is birth. We're the newborn. Isn't that our first stage? We pop out of the mom's womb, right? Today, through magic of science, we can do it other ways when necessary or when preferable. But most of the time, the baby has to take a journey. The baby has to navigate the waters of life. So as soon as that baby is born, what age is it? It's age 0. And it has just navigated the waters of life. It's an intelligent beast. It's an intelligent mammal because it knows how to feed itself as soon as it's born. Every newborn mammal, no matter what species, right? You could be a goat. Every newborn knows how to root, latch, and suckle. They know how to feed themselves the second they're born. They're the intelligent mammal which has just navigated the waters of life. Mom's water breaks. That's Capricorn. It's the goat with a fishtail. That's Capricorn. See, on each stage of life is represented in the picture. So Capricorn is the first stage of life, and it starts at 0. And we're going to go from there. There's so much more to learn. But please note that at age 0 starts Capricorn. And it's very important to know that the tale of the whole human race, therefore, must start in the age of Capricorn. Let's stop there. And I'll wish you well. Catch you next episode where we'll start talking about implications of these 3 laws. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. We're going to discuss the full end of the zodiac. I'm sorry. Before we get into that next stage, we got to finish with the zodiac. We'll be starting with Capricorn, and I wish you all the best. We'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.